I'm Sophia Lee, and up until this precise moment, I held the positions of CEO and lead developer at SecureFlow, a rising star in Silicon Valley's cybersecurity scene. Effective immediately, Ethan proclaimed, pushing the termination documents toward me. His voice carried the same haughty self-assuredness he'd once employed when delivering our divorce papers. The board's decision was unanimous. The enterprise I'd established in my garage 6 years prior had blossomed into a $200 million operation, and now my ex-husband had orchestrated my removal. "No words, Ethan?" he taunted, settling into what had become my chair. His tailored suit sharply contrasted with my typical attire of a hoodie and jeans. No tears, no pleas. My expression remained neutral as I reviewed the documents. Every signature was present, even those of board members I'd considered allies. "You've been busy," I noted quietly. "Someone had to be," he countered. "While you were engrossed in code, I was cultivating relationships. That's what leadership entails, Sophia, not isolating yourself, coding incessantly." I couldn't help but acknowledge his strategy. The timing was impeccable. Just before the launch of our key product, the new security platform I'd dedicated 2 years to developing was slated for release. "The company requires a different type of leadership," he continued, evidently relishing the situation. "Someone with a broader outlook." I met his gaze directly. "And that someone is you?" "The board believes so," he confirmed. "Just sign the documents, step back, and we can proceed." 6 months prior, this would have devastated me, but that was before I detected his initial attempts to gain entry to my development servers, before I observed the late-night board meetings I wasn't privy to, before I began making my own preparations. I grasped the pen, signing the papers smoothly and resolutely. Ethan's brow furrowed slightly. He'd anticipated opposition, perhaps an emotional display. My composed acceptance seemed to unsettle him more than any display of temper could have. "That's it?" he inquired. "You're simply relinquishing?" I stood, collecting my laptop and a handful of personal belongings from my desk. "What's the purpose of contending? You've prevailed, Ethan. The company is yours." His frown intensified. "I know you, Sophia. You don't surrender this readily." "People evolve," I responded, hoisting my bag over my shoulder. "Best of luck with the launch." As I departed my office, now his, I could practically sense his scrutiny, attempting to discern what he was overlooking. Ethan had consistently been incapable of comprehending people, instead manipulating circumstances to his advantage. That's what rendered him such an accomplished COO, but he never fully grasped one fundamental aspect of my character. I invariably adopted a long-term perspective. The elevator descent to the lobby was quiet. Through the glass, I observed the San Francisco skyline, the same vista I'd contemplated daily while constructing SecureFlow from its inception. 6 years of dedication, countless nights without sleep, and endless hours of coding, all culminating in this. My phone vibrated. A message from Claire, my lead developer and long-standing friend. "Is it complete?" "Yes," I responded. "Plan B commences now." Claire was among the select few aware of the contingencies I'd established over the past 6 months, ever since I initially suspected Ethan's duplicity. Like me, she'd anticipated this outcome. Traversing the lobby, I encountered Rachel from HR, who promptly averted her gaze, unable to meet mine. She had been among the first to endorse the board resolution, despite my having been the one to offer her employment when no other organization would consider her background. "It's nothing personal," she'd likely rationalize. "Just business." But they were all mistaken. With Ethan, everything was personal. I emerged into the vibrant California sunlight, donning my sunglasses as I proceeded toward my vehicle. The air was invigorating against my skin, carrying the familiar aroma of coffee and fog, the unmistakable sensation of San Francisco awakening. By noon, the tech community would be aware that Ethan Smith had executed a hostile takeover of SecureFlow, ousting his ex-wife and assuming control of one of the Valley's most auspicious cybersecurity firms. What they wouldn't know What Ethan didn't know was that I had been anticipating this moment from the day I uncovered his initial maneuver. As I drove home, my thoughts reverted to the genesis of this situation. Ethan and I had connected at Stanford's computer science program. He was charismatic, ambitious, and appeared to reciprocate my fervor for coding in a manner few individuals did. We wed immediately following graduation, and while I immersed myself in development, he ascended the corporate ladder at various tech firms. When I inaugurated Secure Flow in our garage, he had been ostensibly supportive. In retrospect, I recognized it. He had been biding his time. 2 years ago, he joined the company as COO, just as we began to achieve substantial traction. His business acumen was intended to complement my technical proficiency, or so I believed. The initial warning sign emerged last year during our divorce. It was amicable, cordial, with no disputes over assets, no acrimonious accusations. He even permitted me to retain complete control of the company without contention. That should have been my foremost alert. Ethan never relinquished anything without a scheme to reclaim it. I arrived at my driveway and remained in my car momentarily, gazing at the residence I'd acquired following the divorce. It was more modest than our former home, but it possessed something more invaluable: a secure home office where I'd been discreetly constructing my contingency plan for the preceding 6 months. My phone vibrated again. Another communication from Claire. "Key meeting in 1 hour. Everyone's confirming." I smiled faintly. While Ethan had been occupied with networking and influencing the board, I had been nurturing loyalty among those who genuinely constructed our products, the developers, engineers, and security specialists who comprehended that Secure Flow's worth resided not in its market capitalization or board politics, but in its code. I entered my home office and activated my system, connecting to our development servers one final time. My access would imminently be terminated, but I required only a few minutes. Lines of code illuminated the screen, the platform we were poised to unveil. 2 years of endeavor, millions of lines of code, all converging on this instant. What Ethan failed to grasp, what he never would, was that in software development, genuine authority isn't in possession, it's in comprehension. The code. A notification materialized on my screen. Access granted. Final protocol initiated. I inputted a sequence of commands, my fingers navigating the keys with dexterity. To anyone monitoring the system, it would appear to be routine pre-launch procedures. However, I was, in reality, activating a series of triggers I'd embedded deep within the code months earlier. Ethan believed he had just acquired a groundbreaking security platform. What he had actually acquired was something far more intricate. My phone rang. It was James, my attorney. "Sophia," he stated upon my answering, "I've just received the termination documents. Are you certain about this? We could contest it." "No, me," I replied, observing the progress bar on my screen advance. "Everything is unfolding precisely as intended." "They're already publicizing Ethan as the new CEO," James continued. "The press release has just been disseminated." "Impeccable timing," I remarked, depressing the final key. "How long until the markets open?" "Approximately an hour, Sophia. What's your strategy?" I could detect the apprehension in his tone. James had been with me since Secure Flow's nascent stages, and he'd witnessed the extent of my investment in this company. "Just observe," I instructed him. "And James, ensure you're recording CNBC around 10 o'clock a.m. You'll want to witness this." Following the call, I opened another window on my computer and initiated a countdown timer. In precisely 47 minutes, when the markets opened, Ethan would ascertain the authentic significance of business is business. A knock at the door interrupted my contemplation. It was Claire, accompanied by 5 pivotal members of our development team. "Everyone's present," she announced as they entered my home office. "The remainder are connected remotely." I nodded, turning to address the group. These were the individuals who had constructed Secure Flow alongside me, who comprehended the stakes. "Is it accomplished?" inquired Alex, our head of network security. Nearly, I responded, gesturing toward the countdown timer. In 5 minutes, Ethan will learn a crucial lesson regarding the distinction between possessing code and comprehending it. Maya, our UX UI lead, bestowed a knowing smile. This is going to be enjoyable. Let's simply ensure our timing is impeccable, I stated. As the seconds ticked away, a profound tranquility enveloped me. The company might have been seized from me, but my work, the essence of secure flow, was never going anywhere. When the timer reached 0, I depressed a final key. Within moments, Secure Flow's stock commenced a precipitous decline. It didn't cease, not until it had plummeted beyond repair. Outside, the city of San Francisco continued its awakening, oblivious to the fact that Secure Flow was now in freefall, and Ethan Smith was about to discover that treachery, in this domain, invariably carries repercussions. By the time the stock market opened, Secure Flow's valuation had initiated a vertiginous descent. As soon as the security triggers I'd embedded were activated, Ethan's newfound empire was no longer the ascendant leader in cybersecurity it once was. Within minutes, the tech world erupted with headlines. Secure Flow struck by massive security breach. 60% stock plunge in first hour. New CEO's brief reign concludes with unprecedented cybersecurity crisis. Ethan's countenance was ubiquitous in the news, his complacent smirk from his announcement swiftly supplanted by consternation and bewilderment as analysts delved into the origins of the catastrophic collapse. What did you do? James's voice resonated through the phone when I answered. It's not about what I did, I stated calmly, my gaze fixed on the screen as news outlets provided updates. It's about what Ethan neglected to observe, my code. A momentary silence ensued on the other end. You're asserting that you... That's correct, I affirmed. I implanted a series of backdoor triggers within the platform's security systems, concealed directly beneath his awareness, akin to a Trojan horse. James paused to assimilate the information. So, you essentially rendered Secure Flow inoperable? Not precisely, I clarified. The company's assets remain intact. The platform is functional. It's merely that the vulnerabilities I coded were configured to activate when Ethan leadership was at its most precarious. And now the world is cognizant that Secure Flow is more than a mere enterprise. It's a time bomb replete with unresolved vulnerabilities. I reclined in my chair, observing the stock figures descend further. This was it, the culminating phase of my retribution. Ethan had underestimated me. He'd presumed that operating a company was about connections and sales. But ultimately, genuine authority resided in those who controlled the code. An alert materialized on my screen. It was Claire. Ready to convene? She'd been present since the inception, and now I knew she was prepared for what ensued. I'll be there in 30, I responded promptly. Upon my arrival at the office, the tension was palpable. Long-standing employees, many of whom had been with Secure Flow from its genesis, congregated in diminutive clusters, exchanging incredulous whispers regarding the company's precipitous collapse. Ethan was nowhere to be located. Where's Ethan? I inquired of Alex, our head of network security, who was furiously typing at a laptop. He's ensconced in the conference room, Alex muttered. He's endeavoring to ascertain what transpired, but it's futile. The damage is irreversible. There's no recuperation from this in the immediate term. Gee, I stated, moving past him. It's time to rectify matters. Inside the conference room, Ethan was pacing, resembling a mere vestige of the self-assured CEO he once was. His costly suit was rumpled, his movements agitated. Upon perceiving me, his expression hardened. You believe you've triumphed, Sophia? You believe I'll simply permit you to seize everything? I allowed the silence to linger. All the trust I'd reposed in him, all the years I'd dedicated to contending for Secure Flow, it was all reduced to ashes. I was no longer incensed. I was beyond that. I comprehended what was required. I haven't triumphed, Ethan, I responded, my voice unwavering. I didn't need to. You were invariably destined to lose because you never comprehended the company. You never comprehended me. His eyes narrowed. You believe you can simply re-enter? The board won't endorse you. The investors. Who do you suppose they trust? I interjected. The individual who possesses no understanding of how Secure Flow genuinely operates, or the woman who constructed it from its foundations? The realization impacted him instantaneously. For the first time, I observed uncertainty flicker across his countenance. But it was too late. Ethan had already expended his resources, and now he possessed nothing. Sophia, I stated, my voice as firm as steel. I'm not here to dispute with the board or the investors. I'm here to extend an offer. Depart now, relinquish Secure Flow, and I'll permit you to retain your reputation unscathed. Remain, and I'll obliterate you alongside this company. His jaw tightened as he advanced a step, but I remained steadfast. The veracity was undeniable. Secure Flow was defunct in its present state. Investors would forsake it, the product would become obsolete, and the media would eviscerate him. This was the juncture that would define his career, and it was a juncture from which he wouldn't recover. What induces you to believe they'll heed you now? He spat. I'm still the CEO, the new CEO. I raised an eyebrow, already cognizant of the answer. Examine the stock price. He swiftly consulted his phone, his complexion paling as he observed the identical figures I had been monitoring. The stock was in freefall. Secure Flow's disintegration was more rapid than he could ever have envisioned. You're genuinely going to permit me to depart with nothing? He murmured, his voice faltering. After all we've endured? Everything? I inquired, my voice scarcely above a whisper. Ethan, I dedicated 6 years to cultivating Secure Flow into what it was. You dedicated 2 years to endeavoring to purloin it from me. He recoiled, his shoulders slumping as the magnitude of his actions finally dawned upon him. Depart now, Ethan, I reiterated, my tone frigid and resolute. Before it's too late. For an extended moment he remained there, his eyes ablaze with indignation and remorse. Then, without another utterance, he turned and exited the room. By that evening, news outlets were ablaze with the narrative of Ethan Smith's abrupt departure from Secure Flow and the company's catastrophic downfall. The verity was manifest. Ethan's hostile takeover had backfired spectacularly. The board, investors, and media swiftly apprehended what had transpired. Without me, Secure Flow was naught. Meanwhile, I was already initiating the processes to reclaim my position. My legal team was preparing the documentation to reinstate me as CEO, and Claire, Alex, and the remainder of the team were making preparations for the subsequent phases. We would reconstruct Secure Flow, more robust, more secure, and more unified than ever. Ethan's treachery had nearly annihilated us, but it also demonstrated the extent of what we could accomplish when we reposed trust in one another. This time, there would be no allowance for betrayal. By the subsequent morning, Secure Flow was on the trajectory to recuperation, and I was once again at the helm.